Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm your host, Amanda Lamb. Nearly 5,000 elevators, escalators, and lifts in North Carolina are behind on their annual inspections. This is a big concern for people who rely on them to get to their destinations safely. WRAL Investigates Sarah Krueger joins me with what she's learned about this situation. Sarah, welcome to the program.
Good to be here.
So, first of all, let's put this into some context. How common are injuries on elevators, for example?
So in a 1-year span, that's the data I got. It's July 31st, 2022 to July 31st, 2023. There were 20 incidents involving elevators or lifts or escalators, according to Department of Labor records. And for most of those, the devices actually were up to date on inspection. And those incidents would be anytime there was an injury or death on an elevator or something that caused significant damage to an elevator. That's what they count as an incident. And going through them, most of them happened at medical facilities, at hotels, convention centers, and those injuries ranged from panic attacks to broken bones and, unfortunately, one death.
And obviously, if you're the person involved in that situation, even though there are only 20, it can be a very big deal. I mean, it's not something anybody wants to go through. So I know you spoke to one family who experienced a tragedy, and this happened in the workplace. So can you explain that situation?
Yes. So on June 30th of this year, Annie Wilbert died while she was at work at Smithfield Grain in Wilson. A Department of Labor report shows she was on a lift and fell 75 feet to her death. And the report notes that the lift brake was not working correctly. I talked to her husband. They had been married for 38 years, just devastating. And he says her job at Smithfield Grain was to check the safety of equipment, do like quality control. And that's what she was doing when she died. He said both of them and their 2 kids, they're all veterans of the armed forces or actively serving. And so, those were the dangerous jobs. He said he was a Marine. He worked in corrections. He thought he was the one who had the dangerous job. And then here it is that she dies at work at a manufacturing facility.
Yeah, such a tragedy. Well, we will be right back after the break. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. So, Sarah, before the break, we were talking about this accident that happened in the workplace with this family, resulting in a woman's death. Tell us what the status of that elevator was.
So it was up to date. It had been inspected about 6 or 7 months prior. That, of course, doesn't give much consolation to the family, especially seeing on the report that there was an issue, apparently, with the brake on it. But given that this lift was up to date and there was still a problem, they worry about the elevators and the lifts that are out of date. So statewide, as of July of this year, there were 4,919 elevators, lifts, or escalators across the state that were out of date for their inspection. And that accounts for about 16% of those devices statewide. And looking down at the county level, what I noticed is a lot of them were in Wake County. Of course, Wake County is a very populous county, but still nearly 2,000 of those were in Wake County alone.
Yeah, and I mean, those are some pretty big numbers when you think about, the number of elevators, obviously, that are in the state. But people ride elevators all the time. If they live in an apartment, if they live in a condo, if they live or work in a high-rise, and there are many of those, obviously, in a place like Raleigh, for example.
And you don't even think about it. You would never typically think, oh, I'm taking the elevator. That's a more dangerous option than the stairs.
No. I mean, you know that taking the stairs is a healthier option, in terms of your heart and your lungs. But, most of us are operating in a hurry, or we're carrying things like groceries or a briefcase or a computer. So I know you did speak to the labor commissioner about this issue, and you talked about, what is going on here? Why do we have this backlog?
And he pointed to 2 things. One is the rapid growth of our state. I think we can all see that wherever we live in the Triangle area. There are a lot of new buildings that are coming up, a lot of really tall buildings that would have elevators. And Commissioner Josh Dobson, he said that the state is adding about 1,000 elevators a year. So that alone makes it hard to keep up with the inspections. And then secondly, he pointed to staffing. So there are 39 inspector positions statewide, and right now 10 of those are vacant. So he thinks, we need more than 39 inspector positions, but it's hard to ask for more when you can't fill the ones that you have. So staffing and growth, those are the big problems. And he pointed out these inspectors, they do a lot more than just inspecting elevators and lifts and escalators. They also, for example, anytime there's like a fair or a carnival, they inspect those rides. So they have a lot on their plate, and they are increasingly being stretched thin.
And obviously they're seeking some solutions here in terms of the ability to hire more people. What are some of the potential solutions they're looking at?
So he said that during his time as labor commissioner, he has implemented some incentives like retention bonuses and family leave, trying to make it a more attractive place to work. And that way he can both recruit in a better way and retain the employees that he has. Josh Dobson, he's not running for re-election, so his time to personally address this is limited, but from talking with him, it sounds like it's something that he is definitely very aware of and concerned about, and understands that this affects a lot of people, and 5,000 units out of date, out of inspection across the state is a lot.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And I'm just curious, from a personal standpoint, I don't normally look at that certificate in the elevator when I get in there to see if it's in date. Have you found yourself, since you did this report, doing that? I mean, are you looking more often?
Every time, yes. So interestingly, one of the elevators at our workplace, at least one of them, is out of date. And now I notice this a lot more. And actually, interestingly, when I was going to Commissioner Dobson's office in downtown Raleigh at the Department of Labor headquarters to interview him, when I got on the elevator there, of course, the first thing I did was glance over and check. And even that elevator there is not up to date on inspection.
Wow. Did you bring that to his attention?
So I wish I had noticed it on the way up. I noticed it on the way down.
Okay. And what about the elevator in our building? Did you let them know?
I know. I should. I don't want any special treatment over here, but I don't take that elevator very often, so I can point it out to you. Maybe you should.
Yeah. Okay. Good information. Good information. Sarah, thank you so much for reporting on this very important issue. For more news from WRAL, sign up for the WRAL Morning Briefing newsletter. You'll be informed and ready to face the day with one concise email. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter. As always, thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download.